And I've since developed a pretty good playbook around, I guess, what I would call provocation marketing. When you have really provocative feature that people are going to feel emotional about one way or the other, and they're going to talk about it, you're onto something.
What are some aspects of that toolkit or the playbook?
I mean, having data, like having a stream of data that people are interested in at GlassDoor, which I did with Bob Homan, who was at Expedia with me as well. GlassDoor is another example of that. When you have constantly changing data that people are interested in, you can almost think about feeding that data to hungry consumers in a Bloomberg-like way. Mm-hmm. And so the playbook that Amy kind of put together was building a PR data distribution infrastructure down to the local.
Remind me who Amy is? Sorry.
Amy was our marketing chief.
Got it.
At Zillow. She's still on the board today. And she was really creative about recognizing that there's an infinite news hole for housing data at local newspaper level once upon a time. And if you could wire that up to just constantly feed the endless appetite. Housing is just an important topic, right? Mm-hmm. And there's always space in the paper for a story on housing and changing prices. And so we set up a mechanism to feed that data, which was a terrific brand builder for us rather than spending ad money. And then just having this estimate be so provocative, like, high school boyfriend's house, philanthropist development team that are trying to figure out who's a good target, whatever. Like it's
lots of applications.
Lots of applications. Yeah. Yeah.
I know you had a lot of fans. I think the Arizona Attorney General was a fan.
That's a deep cut. Wow.
No, but this is of interest to me because there's opposition also.
Oh yeah.
Right? And my God, the number of, I don't think they were actual ulcers, but just the roller coaster ride that I was also on with Uber, from a regulatory, mobbed up local fill in the blank perspective. It was just nonstop battles. Yep. And that was just part of the deal. Yep. Right? If you want.
And actually part of the playbook.
Yeah.
Honestly.
All right.
It's the same provocation marketing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah. So what happened with you guys?
Yeah. We were provocative to some of the industry players who were big lobbyists.
Yeah.
The taxi commission in Uber's case.
Yeah.
In our case, a lot of the real estate professional associations.
They were
not a lot of voters.
They were not thrilled.
They're not thrilled, or they think they're not thrilled. They don't realize till later that it could be helpful. But whatever. Yes, they were
initially
provoked. No industry that likes change.
Yeah.
Most people don't like change. I'm one of the people that loves change, but most people don't. And so we were seen as
you may like change when you're the instigator of the change.
Well, that's awesome. It leaves me more open to change coming from the outside too. Though I do believe, and obviously this is just human nature, right?
Yeah.
But the equivalent of the taxi commission in the Uber case was these real estate professionals, and a lot of places we had them lobbying to have us outlawed. Mm-hmm. Or they're not licensed. How can they make an appraisal? Whatever thing they're going to make up. We knew we were on really strong legal ground, so we weren't so worried about that. Mm-hmm. But the strategy for combating that resistance was literally probably the same thing you guys did at Uber, which was we knew the legislators, state legislators, not to mention federal legislators, were big fans of the site and the service.
Yeah.
Okay. And so all we had to do was make sure we just activated that latent love for the product itself and made it obvious that this way is the future way. Mm-hmm. And the lobbyists got nowhere and it was overcome.
Yeah. In the case of Uber, I don't want to make this overly about Uber, but also turns out when people have something that is incredibly convenient and useful, they do not want it taken away.
No.
And if elected officials like the service or are even ambivalent about the service, they do love getting reelected.
They do.
And man, oh man, if there are a lot of your constituents using that app and you take it away, they're not going to be super happy about it.
Power to the people, baby. You build magic stuff for masses of consumers that they want to talk about with their friends unprompted on the sidelines of the soccer game or what have you. Have you tried Uber? Have you tried Zillow? Have you tried Expedia? Whatever. It's like you're definitely onto something. And having popular support, as we're learning politically right now, is having big populist support is ultimately where the power is derived.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can go too far. We don't need to talk about that. But of course you can go too far. And in fact, it may be that you need to go too far to establish where the frontier is.
All right. Well, I can't not take the bait on that one. What does going too far look like?
I was thinking specifically Uber, but
all right.
Yeah, but because it did, in some cities, municipalities, or
sure.
Airbnb,
you can push too hard.
You can push too hard and learn some lessons about how much leash you're going to be given by the popular support. Because it does tip into a point where, like with Airbnb, I know this guy's a little bit, but it's not a story I'm intimately familiar with, nor was I an early investor or anything, but they did piss off some homeowners, in certain cities, not just the hotel owners.
Yep.
So they found the line, and I think they've managed it really, really well because they lead from the heart. Mm-hmm. I think other companies may have not obviously led from the heart and had difficulty. At Zillow, our job was a little easier.
Also, with those battles, I remember there were early on a number of locations that were incredibly important.
Yeah.
Not just from a ride volume perspective, but from a precedent setting perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So if you win a few of those precedent setting battles, then you don't necessarily have to do like a full frontal assault on the next 10 locations.
That's right.
Because people have gotten the message, you can be a little more diplomatic about
That's
it.
Right.
Which people figure out over time.
Yeah. But then there's the next country and then whatever. Anyway, so there's always something. But provocation marketing with a heart, with the end consumer's best interests in mind, that's a winner, I think.
So if you were teaching a class, maybe you already have, I have no idea, related to provocation marketing. All right, there you go. You get to choose. You can go back to your alma mater, wherever it might be. You're teaching a class.
Yeah.
What would other elements of the class be? Other resources, principles, anything at all?
While I try to figure out a structure here on the fly, to give a couple other examples of stuff that I've been involved with. So I co-founded GlassDoor, which many people out there may know. And our provocation data marketing feature was how much money do people make? Mm-hmm. Okay, not individuals, but the product manager at XYZ company or the developer or the customer service representative. And our model was, we knew that salaries was a little bit taboo for a lot of people, so it was inherently secret and provocative. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then Robert Homan, who is my co-founder, and the team, they had a data collection problem because it was ultimately user-generated content. People would need to share their salaries in a way that we believed in order to get enough data to provide anything interesting to everybody else. And so their innovation, after kind of hand cranking it with survey, their innovation was give to get. You show me yours, I'll show you mine. Very good.
That's very clever.
Very clever. And say, hey, I'll give you a little taste, but if you want to see any more data, you've got to share your salary and your title and your company. We promise you'll be anonymous. And do a company review.
How many people screwed that up where they're the only person with that position? I guess it has to be.
And we had protocols for that. Okay. Yeah, we did have protocols for that. We also then solicited feedback on what it's like to work at the company. Yeah. And, CEOs are kind of public figures. So, okay, we're going to let you review the CEO performance. And we knew all those things would provoke, right? We knew some CEOs would go crazy, So there's another example while I'm formulating a framework. Mm-hmm. Another one is with another former Expedia guy, Mark Britton. We founded a company called Avvo, which was in the legal space, and we decided to rate attorneys, systematically rate attorneys. This had never happened before. It was just kind of like TripAdvisor for attorneys. You could kind of TripAdvisor for anything, right? These are business models that are well trodden now, but these were kind of innovative back in the day. And of course, we were going to get sued because we were rating attorneys.
Yeah, definitely a great way to kick the hornet's nest.
Some investors, when we were raising money, I remember traveling around, doing the Sandhill Shuffle. with Mark, and I remember some people saying, well, is this legal? Can you rape people? You're going to get sued. I'm not going to invest. And we were like, yeah, we're going to get sued. Did you see Die Hard? You remember Die Hard, where the German terrorist leader, is waiting for the last lock to open and he needs the power to go down in order to be able to get the bearer bonds out of the Nakatomi Plaza safe.
Yeah.
Okay. And the people are like, how is he going to get the power to go down? And he said, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the FBI. And they came in on those things, and the FBI, the playbook said, all right, cut the power. Boom. The thing was, anyway, that was exactly the launch strategy of Avvo. It's like, here come the suits. I'll give you the FBI. Anyway, it was perfect because it created all kinds of noise.